What's up, y'all? Welcome to Eddie and Mike, the podcast. It's me, Mike, and I'm here with my guy,
Eddie P, at your service.
It's been a minute. It has been a minute, but we're back and we're ready to get going on this football season. I'm just going to jump right into it. It seems like a lot of people are having problems with the way Washington is handling their prospect visits. For those who haven't heard, Washington is hosting all four of the top quarterbacks in one meeting at the same time, where most teams usually try the individual approach, interview them, bring them in, host them, take them to Morton's Steakhouse, yada, yada, yada. But Washington seems to be, innovative against the grain or whatever. But they're hosting not just the four quarterbacks, but all the players at once. Even had a big event at Top Golf last week, or this week, a couple of days ago. I'm sorry. Eddie, you probably know more about what's going on. So, what is happening, and why is everyone mad?
So I think as I'm watching the Nationals, who are currently losing 4-2 to the Houston Astros, I bring that up because, baseball is full of tradition, the old guys, and you got to do it this way and that way. I think this was a bit of a curveball because you have, like you said, you've always kind of done it one way. And then, these guys are caught off guard. It's my understanding. I don't think any of them knew until they arrived. What would that be, at Reagan or Dulles, whichever airport they arrived. And then it's like, oh, so-and-so's here too. And there's Michael Penix. There's JJ McCarthy. Wait, what? And I like it because, again, it's not traditional. It's a curveball, but it also could be, what would the word I want to use? Not organic, but you could really get a genuine, perhaps, sense of how some of these guys act to maybe adversity, or when, you have to audible, to throw in a football pun. So I like it. The idea that they, like you said, it was an event of sorts. They went to Top Golf, kind of be loose. But then also, during maybe the get to know you process as they're speaking, there's a certain level of competitiveness, when maybe like let's say they're eating, right? They go out to eat wherever, and they're, at this point, everybody's old enough, like you can have a drink, and they're telling stories. And maybe, one guy says, oh, when I was in high school, I did this, the other guy, and now they're competing with each other. And you kind of really get to see how these guys act in these different situations under pressure, things of that nature. And that might be, we'll talk about it perhaps a little bit later after this, but that might be what a lot of this kerfuffle is with Jaden Daniels and his agent, and whether or not some of the stuff that's come out is misinformation. But again, I think it's just people not liking us doing things that aren't traditional. And I think especially new regime, the 49ers allegedly have done this in the past. What we're just talking about.
And pause right there for a second.
Okay, pausing.
Like, that's it right there. The fact, when I found out that San Francisco did something like this and nobody had a problem with it, all of a sudden Washington does it, and not only does it get out, or it happens, or it becomes big news, but people are complaining about it. And that's just one of those fickle things that I just don't like about fans. Like, you're not going to complain that one team does it when another team was doing it before, and you had no problem with it because you didn't know it exists. And I get it, Washington has their past or whatever, but it's not even here anymore. Everybody has agreed that the new regime is doing things not only different, but better, to the point where, like, people in the building is actually making eye contact with people as they come in. Like, that's crazy. I
Making
can't imagine.
Merry Christmas.
Like, I can't imagine walking into a building and nobody looking at you. And like, it's a NFL building. Like, I've been in plenty of government buildings where I've gotten, like, it might have been funny looks, but I've gotten looks nonetheless. So like, stuff like that is happening in Washington now. So this kerfuffle with them complaining about having them all in at once, and Jaden Daniels' agent liking stuff on Twitter, and like, that's not misinformation. That's like a legit fact. They're reposting and liking stuff on Twitter, and I'm like, if I was if I were a player and I had an agent, the first thing I'll probably ask the agent is how frequent are you on social, like, how much are you on social media? Because if you are that much on social media to the point where you're creating headlines in my name, I don't think you're the person for me. And it's just a bad look. And like, I get it as an agent, but at the same time, like, I don't like it, bro. I really don't like it. And I'm not even blaming Washington for creating a situation because, like I said, the 49ers did the same thing. But I don't remember Trey Lance's or who else they picked in the first round. Oh, no, they haven't picked anybody recently because they traded all the picks away. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, like, to me, it's a nothing burger. I really trust this front office as of now. And even like, I don't foresee a reason for me not to trust them like I did with Rivera and them. Like, they probably either won't be good enough or other teams will just be better. But I don't think whatever failures this regime has won't be because of a lack of research and knowledge. I'm sorry. And yeah, but that's how I feel so far about the whole situation.
Okay, so I was about to get into some of what you said, so I'm going to kind of try to respond to a lot of what you said. Totally agree. New regime. People are allowed to look each other in the eye. Men are allowed to pee standing up again. So it's fantastic. We got a new regime. What I was going to say is I could maybe on some level see if it's people upset, like, hey, we just finished having a guy come in here and try to, the Panther way, so to speak. Right. And don't get me wrong, the success of San Francisco versus the success of the Carolina Panthers is fairly vast. Pretty much from the time the Panthers have become a team to now, the 49ers have had a ton of more success than the Carolina Panthers. So I can see that angle. If you're like, hey, look, new regime, I get it, but how about we do it our way, which maybe this is our way. Okay. I sounded like Mr. Mackey from South Park. But yeah, and then the other thing is like, hey, San Francisco could do that because they have built up a team that's been pretty competitive at least the last 5 to 6 years, maybe a little more. Um, so there's that. What I would also say is if it is Jaden Daniels' agency, I want to get to this when we talk about some of the like just general football misinformation. So I'll save some of it. But whether or not it's Jaden Daniels' agent or Jaden Daniels is really saying he wants to play for the Raiders or whoever else, uh, that might be sort of a manifestation of the whole reason to have all these guys together. They want to see who's gonna like who's gonna be cool, who's gonna be like, oh, hey, I'm still gonna get drafted. We're all gonna get a ton of money. We get to play a kid's game. Like, I'm not gonna be upset at this thing, or who's gonna like throw a big fit because it's not all about me. I'm supposed to be the belle of the ball. Maybe that's the angle. I really don't know. They could just be like, hey, look, we got a ton of visits, but why not squeeze as much into it as possible? Maybe in some way there's some due diligence, things they're looking for, things they wanted to, when you learn things about people, sometimes often just being right across from them and asking them that question and not only hearing what they say, but seeing their body language, facial expressions, the whole nine. Maybe it was some of that. Maybe they wanted to see that. And then again, see how all of these guys operate when they're being asked in front of the others. What I would say, just a few other little nuggets. I heard allegedly Jaden Daniels was sort of killing it on the whiteboard. Some other little nuggets that I didn't really think about this. And this is why I love doing this. And then just listening to other people's opinions and trying to like engage people in sports talk, whether they're like diehard, casual, whatever, just to hear different opinions I might not think of. So this guy was talking about, he's like, everybody's down on Michael Penix because of the injuries and the surgeries and whatever. And it's true. That's how I feel. But I think he's like actually a couple months younger than Jaden Daniels. If that's, for what it's worth, throw that out there. And then apparently Drake May, or no, he might be like a month or two older than Jaden Daniels. It's something like that. The older one obviously kind of doesn't work as much in favor of what I'm saying. But then apparently Drake May is like even younger than both of those guys. So in a way, there's even more upside potentially. Just want to throw those last couple things out there. So
Nah, that's yeah, like I said, I'm still sticking to what I've been preaching the last month or so, I guess. When it comes to the two quarterbacks, Daniels or May, I would take either one of them. I'm even starting to warm up to the idea of JJ McCarthy, but I do agree with my man Hunter down in Georgia. I don't necessarily think it's a second overall pick type of player with McCarthy, but I also wouldn't want to risk trading back. And as far as Penix Jr., I was saying that on Commanders Classified a couple of days ago, like
shout out to Commanders Classified.
I don't mind him either trading back and getting some picks. The injury doesn't scare me as much. And as far as and I also said something about Drake May on the show, going back to him real quick. Like a lot of people talk about his mechanics, he's not ready or whatever. Like I don't know if I'm cocky, overconfident, or whatever. But if I had it my way, because at my job, I'm in a current situation where I don't have it my way, and I have to listen to what they want me to do, how they want me to do it. But if I had it my way, I'm taking people's strengths and I'm putting them in a position to succeed. I understand that May's mechanics might not be the most polished mechanics, but the man got a cannon. He can sling that thing. Pause. If I know that he struggles with passes underneath or whatever, and he needs a couple of years to build his mechanics, those first 2 years, I'm probably going to lean a little bit more on the running game. And that includes him because the boy, he's kind of thick too. Again, pause.
Twice,
but
man. That's twice.
He can scramble, like he could run. Can he do it as much as Josh Allen? Probably. I wouldn't want to do that, but he probably can run the ball as much as Allen or Cam Newton or whatever. But I would, lean on that until he's more of a polished passer. Like it's okay to draft a quarterback that's not perfect and start him week one if you have a plan around him. Of course, if you don't have a plan like Washington did with Haskins, of course it's doomed to fail from the start. But again, I really wouldn't mind any of the quarterbacks because it's the regime that I'm trusting in, not the quarterback. Once they decide who the player is, and it seems like they are leaning towards QB at 2.
I feel like that's a lock.
We're gonna ride with that player in this regime, and when they succeed, I'll praise them. When they look like some trash, if you haven't learned in these last 3 years, I don't know what to tell you. I'm cooking them straight up.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw a little nugget out there, and then I don't know if that's gonna affect anything. Then I'm gonna do like a some rapid fire with the topic at hand. Okay, first thing, uh, Dan Orlovsky, former UConn, Detroit Lions, I believe he played for a few other teams in the NFL, claims that while watching footage of Drake May, he's like, yeah, there's some mechanics issues as you mentioned, but he's like, these are easily fixable. He's like, I can see exactly what's wrong, blah blah blah. And I don't mean to, because he's on ESPN or because he played in the NFL, that means he's the end all say all. But at the same time, there's certainly credence to what he's saying. So that's a factor. Which hearing that, thinking about the age part as well, kind of warms me up to May a little bit. I've been kind of for the most part, like Team Daniels all the way. I tend to, yeah, I don't know. LSU's always had some like good players at random positions as well as the skill positions that I've always just kind of really liked to watch. Shout out to Glenn Dorsey. I wanted him to win the Heisman that year. It'd be crazy a defensive tackle winning the Heisman. But anyway, I've started to warm up to May. So having said that, there's a lot of people who say if we draft May per the mechanical issues, why not have him sit a year? So, rapid fire. Each QB that we could potentially draft at number 2, any of the 4 that we brought in, as well as Bo Nix, even. I know he's not a number 2 guy, but thinking about trade back situations too. Are you comfortable with any of those guys sitting a whole year, or do you think they have to start? And then who does and doesn't, etc. Okay, give me some feedback.
Um, I feel like it depends on the off season. Like for example, last year when Howell and Brissett was doing their thing or whatever, it wasn't like Brissett was that much better, if he was better than Sam Howell during the off season. So if fast forward to this off season, if they draft Daniels, May, whoever, if Mariota looks like 10 times better than him, 5 times better than him, to the point where it's like, yeah, we got to start this. I know we just drafted Daniels or May, but Mariota kind of killing it right now in that 0. um, we got to start him until he proves that he doesn't have it no more or whatever. But that's probably the only reason I would be willing to. I mean, the only way I would be willing to have a quarterback sit for a year is if Mariota is playing that much better during practice, during training camp. But if Mariota looks marginally better and the rookie just seems to not be getting it, I'm okay with putting him in the fire starting week 1. And I hate to go back because we do this a lot, but I really feel bad for Sam Howell, man. Like that man just was not put in a position to succeed with the philosophy of that offense last year. Now, if you're telling me that the new quarterback is going to go into that situation, then yes, sit him for a year. If you're going to have him run an offense that he shouldn't be running, please, for the love of God, sit him for a year. But if you understand you got a rookie and you need to mold this quarterback, not just throw him into the fire hoping he takes shape on his own. You actually got to mold him a little bit before you put him in the fire. Then yes, please start him week 1 and save us from Mariota. I don't think he's going to be better than any of the rookie quarterbacks in training camp or whatever. But I'm not saying if he is, it's a major problem because it's not like he wasn't a top pick himself coming out of Oregon. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I feel like I'm comfortable. You look at how like a Carson Palmer, excuse me, turned out. Uh, I'm comfortable. You know, even if it was to maybe be a Daniels trying to really develop. But if they don't, I'm willing to go either way. Pause, because I trust what we're doing. Like you said, it's not just hey, these are my friends, or hey, this is this guy. Um, all things I'm hearing about Peters, being kind of a team player, like, he'll be the decision maker, but he, really heavily relies on everybody's input. Again, the fact that the owner is like, hey, Adam Peters is making that call. Um, just everybody on the same page. I'm willing to ride with them, whichever they do, which I actually certainly at this point, I'm like, hey, save this person, like you said, from potential beating, like, rest them, get them acclimated. That could be really beneficiary, honestly. Um, so speaking of that, we have the second pick, Mike. When I look back to everything that's happened, right? The purchase of the team by Josh Harris, yeah, man. I just like to drink in a red cup, and anyway, you know, whether it's him buying the team, sorry, I had a long pause there. I was trying to be dramatic and then I overdid it. Or whether it's the Peters hire, which was like that was the big move. That was splash, like, hey, we got the guy that all the other teams that needed this guy. He not only did we, excuse me, not only did we get him, but he wanted to come here. So that was the big move. But then you kind of look to our coaching search, and it was like, hey, this Ben Johnson guy in Detroit, like, this is happening. He's going to come here, razzle dazzle. We talked about how typically offensive minded coaches are more successful, and, we're going to need that because rookie QB, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't work out. We get Dan Quinn. We kind of like, wait, what? Dan Quinn. And I mean, no disrespect. I think the dude is a good football mind, great even. Guys obviously want to play for him. I'm excited. I'm happy he's our coach. Not saying he was my first pick, I'll be honest. So comparing the way I, phrased all that, do you think our second pick will be more like the Adam Peters hire, the big sexy, like this is who everybody wanted? Granted, we have number two, so we're going to get somebody that somebody else wants. So I understand it's not the same. Or are we going to Dan Quinn it where like they're going to pick JJ McCarthy or maybe even Michael Penix Jr. or for some reason Bo Nix or trade back, which maybe that's a little more like Dan Quinn, right? Trading back with say the Vikings, someone like that. What you think? Talk about it.
Um, hmm. I really think it's going to be the former. I don't think they're going to trade back or draft McCarthy with the number two pick. I really feel like at this point, it's and this is based off what Peter said, like in the press conference. They pretty much are close to making a decision with the second pick. Quinn kind of said the same thing a couple of weeks ago that they're making a decision with the second pick. I don't think they're going to stay at 2 and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt. So, yeah, I think it's going to be one of the two out of the big three between Williams, May, and Daniels. Would I be mad if they draft McCarthy? No, it'll. I think drafting McCarthy, like you said, is closer to the Quinn reaction,
Okay.
where you like, man, I really wanted Ben Johnson, but thinking about it, this might be the best pick. Like with the Quinn hire, you wanted the innovative offensive person, but you got the great football person, and a lot of people came because of Quinn. And I just feel like players and coaches, we wouldn't be in the position we are as a team coaching and players right now that we would be if we hired Ben Johnson. I just don't think Peters has that much of a pull. He might be a great man, but he's not the people. I mean, he doesn't have the connection that Dan Quinn has,
Not
playing
yet.
in the NFL and coaching in the NFL and coaching in college, multiple teams, multiple schools. Like, I think we really lucked up with Quinn. And I think I can make a case that we'll luck up with McCarthy. Like I said a couple of episodes ago, Jonah might be right. Cause might be right. Like I I blame LE for this of Commanders Declassified because the only game that I ever saw from McCarthy outside a few plays in the championship game was his game versus Maryland last year, and he was awful in that game. Threw 2 picks. Passes weren't what I feel like an NFL quarterback pass should be. But when I actually started listening to people who know more than me, you need to get educated. It's a humbling experience, but it needs to happen. So
Stop
talking
it.
to people that know more than
The
me,
hell.
actually actually looking again and not zoning in on just the Maryland game. I see the vision. He he looks like to me, he looks like a high powered Alex Smith.
High powered.
And
What on earth
I
does that?
think that's his ceiling. I think that could be his ceiling. Because with Alex Smith, he was a good quarterback. He just knew how to play the position. Very athletic. He just didn't throw the ball enough or well enough. I just don't think he was. Somebody said he wasn't as aggressive as a passer. I don't think Smith is as advanced, as polished a passer as McCarthy is coming out of college, like Smith was coming out of Utah all those years ago. Dang, that was 22 years ago, bro. Um, but yeah, like that's my comp. I like Alex Smith. Somebody else said he was a poor man's Joe Burrow, and I was like, really? So like that's how funny this whole draft season can be. In February, you can look at a player and be like, man, I don't know, this dude, I don't know, he might not be it. But come April, you're like, man, I was wrong. He seems to be much better than I initially thought. And that's the fun part about me not watching college football regularly. Like you see a player and your initial reaction is like, man, this dude is butt, this man is cheeks. But you keep looking. You don't hold one thing against them. You let your eyes develop, and you just want to know if that first game was it. What is your first reaction? Your first look, was it a? I'm sorry, I'm echoing. I don't know where it came from. That was good. Your first look, is that the theme, or is that just part of the big picture? And it just seemed like with McCarthy, that was just a part of the big picture. He isn't as erratic with the ball as he was against Maryland. He's actually a bit more responsible. And yeah, Michigan didn't throw a lot with him, but I don't know. And I don't know if I'm trying to talk myself into liking him because I feel like Washington's going to shock the world and draft him at 2 or what. But I'm just saying, like, I was wrong. I trashed him. I called him a bum. Said he wasn't worth the first round pick. I was wrong. He probably going to go top 10 to Minnesota or something and have a pretty decent career.
Yeah, so the way I see it is maybe he could be like he being McCarthy. If we pick him, there maybe could be like some element of surprise. Uh, you know, I haven't watched any Michigan games or McCarthy games. I know he's athletic. He's got, I don't want to say longevity, but like he was, a 4-year guy at least as far as I remember. Uh, and so there's the loyalty and the leadership, things like that could come into play. He could be a Dan Quinn type where just being a football guy and others gravitate towards that. So I could get down with that. And then again, back to the element of surprise, maybe he is a decent thrower and whether it was the game you saw or some of these other games, game script or just Michigan being better at running the ball than passing, let's not forget it gets cold in Michigan during football season. So that's a factor as well. You have a team like Michigan where I think what would they have like between McCarthy and all these other running backs? They had a bunch of different guys having 100-yard games. A couple of times, I think they had like two or three of them have 100-yard games in the same game, so they didn't need him to throw. Um, so I'll be honest, he certainly would not be maybe even the second or third guy I'd want to pick. But if they take him, again, like I said, I'll ride with the decisions that Peters and company, Hog ownership group that they decide. I'll ride with them. But I don't know. I've kind of like really gotten to where, hey, I really don't care. Like, not that I don't care, but I pick one of these guys, and then if it's not Jaden Daniels and it's May or McCarthy or again Penix or even Bo Nix, I now am intrigued to see if this works out and if there's some savanty, whatever, savantness going on here. Well, we haven't seen any of this in like decades, Mike. I mean, we've seen some good draft picks here and there. You think of a guy like Cam Curl, no longer on the team, but you know, he was a very late pick that worked out. And that's the kind of stuff that I think we've been really wanting to see is like, all right, come here and work some of that magic, Adam Peters. And I get it. This is his first draft. So I don't mean to say it like we've been clamoring, but at the same time, the fan base as a whole, given, just how we've been the last quarter century. So I don't know, man. It
So,
just kind of
um,
ready for us to make the pick and like, move on.
speaking of moving on, I'll move on to, let's say, January 25.
There you go.
It's after the season, and what do you think is more likely that Washington had us? Well, not, let me say, not more likely. How likely is it that Washington had a season similar to the 2023 Houston Texans, who had a trash year in 2022, was able to draft a quarterback second, and they went on to have a great year, win a playoff game, win a division. On a scale of one being is just straight up not happening, and 10 being very likely, where are you standing with it?
I probably like maybe just over a 5 because I want to be optimistic. I want to kind of like, 5 obviously like being sort of like playing it safe, showing some balance, things like that. Depending on your whole outlook and all that kind of mojo. Um, I don't think we can be like the Houston Texans for the simple fact that if I was to break it down. So certainly you could say Jaden Daniels could be like a CJ Stroud because they're not big. They have the mobility and threat of running the ball when a play breaks down or extending a play using their legs. But I don't see anybody that's on CJ Stroud's level in terms of talent as far as throwing and being able to run. Jaden Daniels can throw. He's got an arm, but I don't know that he has sort of the QB acumen at the pro level to kind of make the reads and throws that Stroud was making. Granted, he didn't like start. He didn't hit the ground running. There was a little bit of a buildup to the start of the Texans season. But I guess if we're going off of like comps, it would have to we would go back to McCarthy, who we just talked about. CJ Stroud had a lot of success in college, and I don't mean to, Ohio State, Michigan. That's crazy how that worked out. But, McCarthy would be probably the closest to it, a guy who's got scramble capabilities, extending the play capabilities. He's got pedigree, comes from a blue blood football school. But as far as that happening, it's not the same. So the Colts lost Richardson early on, and they're a solid squad, but they weren't the same. Jonathan Taylor went down as well, plus the contract, and then what's his name writing nasty things about him on Twitter and all that. Then the Jaguars are kind of up and down. I think they're a solid squad, but I don't know. To me, they're just missing something. I don't know what it is, but they're missing something. And then who else? The Titans. The Titans, I just think were kind of aging. Not that they're old, but the way they play football and grinding it out defensively, running the ball a lot of those guys just started to fall apart because NFL not for long. So I think it's the division. I know I took a roundabout way of getting to it, but I think it's not the same just because of how loaded the Eagles are. The Cowboys still have some talent. The Giants have some talent. I think they'll surprise you, catch you off guard. What, they still got Waller? He's a really good football
No, I
player.
was just laughing at the way you was questioning it. Like, yeah, some talent. But no, I really feel like you
Guys,
you
you can.
nailed it.
What I mean is the fact is they've got some football players that are going to come out there and play hard, and they're going to you catch some teams off guard and stuff doing that. You come up, show up every game.
Nah, but I really feel like you nailed it. I don't think. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's about a 5-2 as far as Washington being this year's Texans. It's the division.
Yeah.
It's the division. The NFC East is just stronger than the AFC South historically,
Yeah.
culturally, like recently. Like it's just the NFC beast. We are who we've always been since even before the formation of this current version of the NFC East. Even back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when the Cardinals was rolling with us all the way from the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
The East was so beast that we couldn't be contained regionally. And still can't, because I can promise you there's nothing East Coast about Dallas, Texas at all.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't imagine like splitting it up now, like making it nothing but,
yeah, because I think we talked about it. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
The Panthers should definitely be in the NFC East, and the Cowboys should be in the NFC South. Like
Yeah.
that should be the real division, but you can't break up that classic rivalry that Dallas has with the other three teams in the Northeast, or if you consider Washington Mid-Atlantic and not Northeast and whatever, I don't care. But I think the only similarities are the similarities themselves. Rookie quarterback drafted second, defensive coach, team finishing fourth, and that's about it. I don't think they'll have a similar season. Like I can't see Washington winning 14, 12 games or whatever next year, because I never seen it. So that's one thing I can say. But nevertheless, bro.
I mean, I'll take the success they had. If we
I just don't see it happening. That's all.
Yeah, same.
Um,
I'll be happy if I'm
so
wrong.
circling back to the draft, I'll start out with this quote. Actually, I'm not saying it word for word, but I just remember seeing it. Bill Belichick, Uncle Bill, and we're going
William.
to talk about him. We're talking about him more in the next segment, but initially, I'll say this about him. He said that when it comes to draft information leaking out, you won't necessarily hear it happening, or you shouldn't believe it that it's coming from the teams unless it's about 16 hours before the draft. So, based on what he's saying, everything that we're hearing about the draft is not coming from the teams.
Hmm.
that it is indeed misinformation being spreaded by, he's not saying this, I'm saying it. It could be spread by the players' agents. It could be spread by player family members, the players themselves, media just making stuff up. Like it could be any of that right now. So, what's your whole? I mean, not what's your thing, but how do you feel about draft season and information in general? Like, do you take it all with a grain of salt until the picks are actually made, or do you
Well,
think there is some legs to what Uncle Bill was saying?
oh, I certainly. I mean, I would go with what he's saying. He didn't specifically list an agent or agency. He didn't, like there wasn't an angle for him to like attack anybody specifically. You know what I mean? He listed a large group of people, very diverse large group of people. So no way that so I would ride with what he's saying as being at least somewhat gospel. The experience he's had and everything. The way I look at it, though, I feel like it's a weird kind of misinformation, and maybe I'm too simple minded or just not of that realm in terms of like how you quote unquote. I'm using the bunny ears here to get someone drafted. I mean, I feel like Jaden Daniels is going to get drafted because he had a great season in probably the toughest football conference in college football. He won the Heisman. Granted, they didn't really get to the college football playoff and all that, but yeah, like that's how he's going to get drafted. He's not going to get drafted because his agent is threatening to, well, now we are going to meet with the Vikings and all this and that. Um, I just, what's that going to do? You can meet with the Vikings all you want. If we have the second pick, we're picking you whether you put out a tweet that they did or didn't. Um, that's the kind of stuff that I think is weird. But like, all right, we the whole Florio thing, Mike Florio bashed us up and down. Thanks,
I
Mike.
never pay attention to dude. Like I'm surprised.
Well,
Like I wouldn't even brought him up in the show. That man is a straight up clown.
I only brought it up because his agent liked all of this. Mike Florio, we talked about the four quarterbacks, one meeting thing. Mike Florio criticized us for that in a tweet. Him being Jaden Daniels' agent liked that tweet, and several other tweets, kind of just the same thing. Why would you do this? Why wouldn't you, you know, maximize that one-on-one time instead of having four guys together like that, and whatever. But I don't understand. Like I said, if I want to take Jaden Daniels because you did a tweet, that's not going to stop me. And if I was thinking about not taking Jaden Daniels because you liked a tweet or made a comment, that's not really going to change anything. I'll tell you, the things that change stuff would be like, is it Laramie Tunsil? Whatever dude is that had the weed oxygen mask thing, and that picture came out, I think draft day or night before draft day, something like that. And clearly, I don't think the agent did it. I know that's different. It kind of goes against what we're saying. But my point is, if an agent was to do something like that, maybe like, one agency does it to another agency's player because their player's ahead of the player the first agency represents. I could see something like that. But I don't, the misinformation and all that, I don't pay a lot of attention to it because at this point, there's so much on social media and the Jimmy Butler Tyler Hero thing, they got me. Misinformation, but that was filled with some drama. This was just Jane Daniels' agent saying, we didn't like that all the quarterbacks were there and we went to Top Golf. That's what that was. So I don't know if you feel differently or if you have anything more to say on it, but I'm kind of just like that's whatever. Agents trying to do their job and get their guy more money. I can't fault them for that, but I don't see how that works. Maybe you have an idea and you can school me, but I don't know.
Nah, I'm just at this point. I'm over it all. I I definitely I know once next Thursday starts, like things are going to get even crazier. But as of now, I'm so over it all. Mock drafts, draft talk, like some of these players, most of these players are not going to be talked about on this show probably ever again. But nah, like I'm over it all. And speaking of being over it all, I guess Bob Kraft is really over all this Bill Belichick legend GOAT stuff because yeah, he sabotaged Washington even considering Bill Belichick and their head coaching search.
See, I had heard it was the Atlanta job too. That's
No, it was um, Josh Harris spoke to Bob Kraft about Bill Belichick and decided not to. They didn't even offer him an interview or anything. I don't think I'm making this up. Could have sworn that's what started all this talk this week. That was um, the first shoe to fall, I guess. Because after that, I heard even more stuff. Um, yeah, I've heard even more stuff coming out that about, like you said, Bob Kraft dissing or being petty towards Bill Belichick.
towards one
And
William H. Belichick.
yeah,
H is for happy.
um, yeah, Don Van Natta Jr. He released a story this week that kind of started all this, and like it, it really seems like Bob Kraft was like sabotaging this man behind the scenes, and that's insane to me. And yeah, how you feeling about that, bro? That's kind of wild.
What is that, like six championships, 9 Super Bowl appearances or something like that? Maybe a little less. I don't know if I'm mixing in Brady's championship with the Buccaneers. Oh no, it's 5 for Belichick. Excuse me. I am. Still, your man brought you all those championships. And I don't see, to be honest, I feel like, and we talked about this, it might not have been in our best interest to hire Belichick anyway, because you see with the total control thing and how that's worked out for him. I mean, he's obviously a great coach and he'll get a lot out of his guys, but the whole, coach GM thing wasn't really working. The guys he was picking, that talent pool started really drying up the last couple seasons there. So in that sense, I'm not as mad, but it definitely does seem like really petty, especially like, dude, you are super rich. You own a great team, a team that actually was kind of like a freaking doormat for a long time until Belichick came around. Well, really Parcells, and then kind of like, not saying that like Belichick just walked into a great situation, but at the same time, um, anywho, yeah, like that team, that stadium, everything, the whole thing, the Patriots brand in general is probably one of the richer ones in the NFL, just based off of recent success, and that's due in large part to Belichick. The whole hoodie and all that, like there's so much like lore, I guess you could say, with that franchise and that dynasty that they had for a long time in the 2000s. It really, it's like, bro, what he Belichick must have really like done some deep cuts or something, you know what I mean? Like he must have really pissed Kraft off. Maybe like made a comment about the you know, escort uh fiasco. Maybe that's it. I don't
I
know.
forgot all about that.
See?
Forgot he was original Deshaun Watson, I think. Or did he come out after? I
He was
forgot.
caught in the sting. So, Deshaun had accusers. This was like, hey, we caught your hand in the cookie jar there,
Mm,
Mr. Kraft.
mm, 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 mm. Nasty. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and I ain't even trying to like agree with everything you're saying on purpose. Like it's just, I just feel like sometimes facts are facts, and um, Kraft is being Alabama. Like, I don't know what else you want me to say. Like the dude is straight up a clown for interfering in that man Belichick. Not only after he won all those championships, but just as a man. Like, if somebody want to hire him, that's up to them. It's not like Bill Belichick put Kraft down as a reference, even though I wouldn't be like surprised if he did, considering their long history with each other. If somebody would know about me, it would be him. But if I feel like he ain't the coolest with me, then I probably wouldn't put him down as a reference. But nevertheless, yeah, like
It's
I
just not honorable. It's not what men do. I hate
exactly.
to take that angle, but it's like
It was a
totally different
Bama move.
conference and division. You not that Belichick's some poor guy just making it by, on ends meet, but you don't need to like block that man from getting paid. You know what I mean? Like I almost kind of feel like I don't know how else if there's any action, maybe Belichick could take some legal action against Bob Kraft. I mean that'd just be
Nah,
great. That'd be
now
great
we
to see
really doing the
coverage of that.
most.
Like, yeah, you
We
see.
are really doing the most. Um, yeah. So speaking of doing the most, like I do not understand why athletes have this incredible need for speed. I get the need for speed. Like I love driving fast, especially late at night when there's not many cars on the highway and the safe conditions. I might open up that V6 a little bit. Um, and sometimes even when it is moderate traffic, my anger does get the best of me. If a driver's holding up the left lane, I might snap a little bit and go 110 on them. Um, Not purposely, but always safely. I'm always going to make sure it's done safely. But these players, man, racing in these fancy cars, killing people, endangering themselves. Like, this is nonsense. Rashid Rice, wide receiver from the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl defending Kansas City Chiefs. This man is back home in Texas, wowing. Like, to the point where he actually ran from the police, y'all. And Eddie, I just want to get your thoughts on the situation. If you have any more news on the situation, like what's up with these mammals
I
and
hate
these
to make light
cars?
of it, but allegedly Kadarius Toney was the first to report this to Andy Reid. I'm just throwing that out there. Um, Anywho, you didn't get my joke, man.
I got it.
Anywho, yeah, it's scary. You know, on one hand, it's like, hey, you're only going to live but so long. Enjoy it, especially like for these guys. They're the creme de la creme. They're that 1% where they get to make tons of money and get some of the finer things in life. Automobiles being one of them. Enjoy it, but I I think it's really more of a personal thing. I'm not much of a gearhead. I do appreciate these nice, super expensive cars. They look nice. I know they got crazy, complicated engines and whatnot. But this man, first of all, I'm pretty sure he's being extremely foolish. I think it was like a Corvette versus like a Ferrari or something. It was just something like, what are you thinking? And then furthermore, I think there were a number of other cars damaged in this accident. I don't think anybody died,
Mhm.
but I think this caused like a pileup almost, or so, like some sort of like a whole scene. It wasn't just like, hey, I got a little fender bender, pull over, we exchange information. This was like, hey, uh, this is the remaining screen from like four middle schoolers all playing Grand Theft Auto together. You know what I mean? Minus, people beating each other up and all that kind of stuff. But the car damage, that part. Uh, yeah, and especially, we're not far removed from Henry Ruggs. I think before we started the show, we had mentioned the DeShazer Everett thing. Um, you know, Jalen Carter in college before he got drafted by the Eagles. Uh, I'm trying to think of my Malik Sealy going way back for the Charlotte Hornets, who are now, I believe, the Charlotte Hornets still. They went Bobcats back to the
Yeah.
Well, it took me a second because I was about to call them the Thunder, and I was like, no, that's Seattle. It was because they were Charlotte, then they were the
I got
Bobcats,
you.
and now they're back to being the Hornets. I was like, okay, but then I thought like, well, the Pelicans maybe. Anyway, Malik Sealy, basketball player, him and some other guys were racing. He lost his life. Just bringing up athletes who have been caught doing this, or especially again Henry Ruggs situation. I don't know what explanation to give because, like I said, I don't want to tell people how to live their life, but my God, and these guys are going on probably some of the more busy roads and busy areas. It's not like they're frequenting like Montana or somewhere where there's only like small population. They're in like LA and other places where there's a lot of people. I don't get it. And they already have all these various summits and meetings and rookie camps and rookie orientation. The NFL can't hold these guys' hands. It's ridiculous. And I don't mean to pick on Rasheed Rice or pick on just the NFL. It, there's tons of sports where these guys are being reckless. Specifically, since the car thing is what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't know how you regulate that. I really don't.
Yeah, because I was saying the same thing about Jamin Davis. He actually, if he didn't spend jail time last year, he spent time in jail last year. He'll be spending time in jail this year, like a week or so, for an incident that he was a part of. One of the incidents that he was a part of, there was actually a few times that he's been pulled over for driving, and it's to the point where they suspended his license. Like, dude, you clearly don't get it. So, yeah, like I don't know. And then like if athletes aren't getting in trouble for driving recklessly, they're usually getting in trouble for um indecent behavior or domestic violence. like it could get wild. But that's what's happening with Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. He won't be disciplined by the NFL after an alleged domestic violence incident. Um, I'm not really sure all the details behind it, but um, we always say like players are humans too, and that goes all the way down to them being humans that make mistakes and that don't think things through all the way. Forget
Well,
being an NFL player and putting your hand on a woman. As a man, I think we kind of like establish there's just a way we, Eddie and Mike, expect men to act. And putting your hands on a woman as a man is clown behavior to us.
100%. 100%. Uh, I don't know if it's like maybe it has to do with the ego thing. I don't have a ton of experience around pro caliber athletes, but I could sort of quantify it to like, that guy was probably the man in college and then even more so the man in high school, right? Well, I think we've all been to high school and some of us even to college where you see the upper echelon athletes, how they act, how they're treated. Of course, just like everything else in life, there are variations of that. It's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all kind of thing. But one of the stereotypes or variations is sort of the athlete that acts entitled, does so because they are treated in an entitled fashion and pampered, etc. And they're used to being told how great they are and kind of used to getting their way and not really necessarily getting a lot of pushback when they try to sort of exercise that entitlement or what they think they are entitled to. And maybe this is the case, not necessarily saying that the girl wasn't giving it up, but for whatever reason, dude got mad and felt like he was within his rights and everything to put his allegedly put his hands on the woman. I mean, I kind of feel like something had to have happened if law enforcement, everything else gets involved. Now, on the flip side, not ruling out that, hey, maybe this young lady was upset with him and trying to kind of, you know, sick the cops on him, so to speak. So gotta, play both sides, pause, did it again. Um, you got to look at it from both angles. So I don't know. I mean, I guess good for him, right? Because I'm not hating on him. I don't have any issue with Zay Flowers. So good that he can stay out of trouble. But I mean, yeah, I just said it so vernacularly. This sounds weird, but like these guys got to like learn how to stay out of trouble. Like you got all this money, you're gonna lose it. NFL careers are only short lived. I just, I know it's easier for me to say while I'm sitting on my couch, but
When you said they got their own money or they got their money or something,
yeah,
you sounded like James Amos on Coming to America when he was like, "Baby, the boy got his own money." And when I say the boy got his own money, the boy got his own money. um, but nah, like you're right, bro. They need to think more carefully, and I understand is mental issues, upbringing, things like that that contribute. But at
CTE,
the end of the day, huh?
CTE could be a thing too. I mean, I know
Right.
he's a younger player.
But I
It's
mean, we can't even say that for all sports though,
yeah,
because in basketball, that's not a prevalent issue.
yeah.
And they have they be acting recklessly sometimes too. So
Well,
nah,
great point.
I ain't rocking with that. Nah, it's like nah. But we are wrapping up the show. We still have 3 topics that we want to talk about, but we are winding down. Thanks for hanging out with us. But the first topic, with us winding down, I really feel like this might be the time, bro. I really feel like it might be happening. The WNBA, I think they may be on the come up, and I think it's going to start with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. They're lightning rods for good entertainment, and that's what I feel like the WNBA has been lacking. The off the court storylines. Like nobody knows who Asia Wilson is like that. Once Candace Parker got to college, people stopped following her. I didn't even know Diana Taurasi was still playing, bro.
Yeah,
Like, remember what's her name? Lizzie Clark or Cambridge or something. It was a
yeah,
tall, big girl
yeah.
that
She's
played
in
basketball.
Australia.
Yeah, she got in a lot of trouble, but a lot of people knew who she was to the point Drake put her in a song,
Yeah,
referenced her in a song. I'm saying, so like that's the missing factor. Is wild as it sounds, that's kind of why we care about the sports that we care about. It's not just the game itself; it's what's happening off the court, the situations outside of the whistle, so to speak. Like that's why we watched the LSU Iowa rematch a couple of weeks ago from last year, because it had some drama in it, and we wanted to see them go at it again because we knew it was going to be intense. And I like basketball like that in controlled settings. Hate it in Little League and AAU. Like, absolutely hate when things get out of control because they're kids. And I feel like the adults, maybe they don't start it all the time, but they definitely intensify it all the time, to the point where you won't see me coaching or officiating youth league sports because of the parents. But I digress. I really digress. But bro, what you think, man? Like, you think
Well,
I'm cooking or not?
I think the possibility is there. I think this is where it's going to get interesting, right? So you mentioned Diana Taurasi, and I'm not trying to throw shade on her, but I really think she is not a fan of Caitlin Clark. They did a lot of, like, you know how the Manning brothers did like their little like telecast while watching Monday Night Football, but it was like from the basement or the man cave, the Manning cave, whatever. Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird did a lot of that during the women's Final Four, and they would have, like Jason Sudeikis would join them, like other guests would join them. And there was just some moments, especially during Iowa's game, during, Iowa versus UConn, or not Iowa. Yeah, Iowa versus UConn, which I think was one of the Final Four matchups, and during the national championship, where you could kind of hear like Diana Taurasi was not necessarily a fan of Caitlin Clark. Maybe not that she was hating on her, but just like, hey, I'm gonna cook this girl when she comes to the league. You know what I mean? And certainly there's that, like, always that competitiveness and that rivalry, but it definitely sounded kind of like jealous and petty. And I'm not trying to throw that in there and put a spin because it's women's sports and add some sort of like soap opera drama, whatever. I'm really not trying to do any of that. I bring that up because, like, if Diana Taurasi feels that way and a lot of other girls feel that way, and they're just shutting Caitlin Clark down, that might work against what you're talking about. And I definitely feel like that's a even bigger possibility for Angel Reese. She kind of struggled this year as a whole, as far as I could see. Now both these girls did their thing, polarizing figures. I know Angel Reese definitely was like all over with like a lot of the fashion stuff, during the season, and then even during the draft, she had a whole like it was sort of like a cloak scarf kind of thing. Um, and they're coming in with already making a lot of money. So on one hand, they might be a little savvy with their money and not as overwhelmed by being rich and not being able to handle it. But then I think you would need for them to come in and be kind of successful their rookie year to kind of help keep that rock rolling. Um, Even though I think Reese might struggle more than Clark, I think there is infinitely more pressure on her. She definitely had a great run in college, was integral in her team's success. It wasn't just, she's scoring points. It was a lot of the things she's doing. Well, she's going to be expected to do that in the NBA, where everybody was like the Caitlin Clark of their team. So having said that, that's a ton more pressure. And then add in, I believe the team who Indiana drafted her, I think at least half of their games are going to be nationally televised. At least half, maybe more. So that is a ton of pressure.
You muted yourself, bro.
I'm sorry, I was dealing with something and I was worried that there would be noise. Um Anywho, she's drafted Indiana. I think half of their leagues, I mean, half of their games are going to be nationally televised, maybe more. Ton of pressure because all these other girls in the league are going to be like, all right, you think she's something? I'm here to show you. So
Nah, I get it. I really get it. Um, I always use like people that aren't into sports as like a litmus test of how big a event is or how big something is. And my mother was talking to me about the WNBA draft this week, and I'm like, oh, okay. I see what y'all doing, WNBA. I see what y'all
It'd
doing.
definitely be cool for the league to get better, and I don't mean to sound, chauvinistic or so one-sided, but you can't make people like something. I respect the women's game. I mean, certainly all those women can beat me in a basketball game, but you know,
Cook me.
I'm me, right? You figure in that the league is subsidized by the men's league. If we want the women paid as much as the men, I mean, certainly the talent level could potentially rise up some, but they need the same support. Look at men's sports in general. We go nuts for our teams and are burning jerseys and crying and losing bets where we got to shave heads or beards or whatever. Like, we do that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying women need to like bet their heels or, bet their, I don't even know what something a woman would bet, but uh, they got to do that kind of stuff though.
Man,
That's
it's
what the league
lynching.
needs. I hate to say it, but what you're saying is a start, and hopefully Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese can sort of help grow that. I just think that they're going to have to find a way to give more to get more, if that makes sense. Because, like, I think there's another thing where Clark has like a Nike deal, and that's going to be like extremely lucrative. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Good for her. And I'm not saying she didn't earn it, but her using some of that money, and I don't exactly know how I would do this, whether you just, use some of it to supply the rest of your teammates with, top-notch equipment, whether it's shoes or, different kinds of compression workout stuff, etc. Whatever they can, they're gonna have to do that. They're gonna have to make some sacrifices because the highest salary in that league, I think, is like 220 grand or something like that. It's not a lot.
Yeah. Shout out to the Washington Capitals, man.
Playoff
They
bound, brother.
took out the Flyers on Tuesday, I believe,
Mhm.
and that clinched the last spot in the NHL playoffs. And I'm happy, bro. Like, get to see some playoff hockey. Wasn't expecting to see that at the trade deadline when we were selling. Like, we traded everybody away, but they rallied together, and now they get a round one matchup versus the Rangers. And I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Hockey is one of those sports where I'm not going to sit here and say the seeding doesn't matter, but I feel like it doesn't matter as much as it does in the NBA and the NFL. And yeah, like they're gonna have to come see about us. We're the eight seed. I heard we're the worst team ever in goal differential that ever made the playoffs, like minus 36 or something like that. But when that season ends and the playoffs start, you're gonna have to come see about us, like straight up. And like I was telling Eddie a couple of days ago when we was chatting about it, I think the Rangers took us out once or twice when we won the President's Cup and had the President's Trophy and had the most wins or most points in the NHL for that season. I think the Rangers either took us out in the first round or the second round or something like that. It's time for some payback, bro. You got a legend like Ovechkin. You got a hot goalie. Like, yeah, let's. I want their heads. I want the Rangers. I like give me one of them AI generated pictures of me with a Caps shirt or jersey on, holding the New York Statue of Liberty head in my hand, screaming, yelling. I don't know, but I want it. I want the Rangers' head. I want their neck. I want to win.
All right, all the artists and graphic designers, please get right on that image for young Michelangelo. We need it. It needs to be framed, hanging in the background for next episode. Hold up. So, yeah, lots to unpack there. Far as I mean, let's go to the beginning of the season. You got Spencer Carberry, you got an aging Ovechkin, and I think at least yours truly is over here like, hey, let's try to win some games, be competitive, but let's get Ovechkin this all-time goal scoring record. You know what I mean? And it couldn't have really like we were in a lot of games where if it wasn't a 1-1 going to overtime, we were kind of getting our butts whipped. I mean, we were just getting beat. And then, you know, all of a sudden it looks like, hey, this is about to get even worse. Like Backstrom's going to have to retire. We're injuries are coming around here and there. You look at Darcy Kempner, which I can't remember if it was Florida or where he's a former Stanley Cup champion goaltender, and we bring him in and it's not working out. He's not playing well. Kuzi goes on the what was that they called it? It wasn't for injuries. It was like the non-injury, you know, disabled list, something like that, and then eventually gets traded. All of a sudden, we're getting competitive here and there. We're kind of hitting some grooves. We beat some decent teams here and there. Ovechkin's starting to get some goals, starting to heat up, and next thing you know, we're beating the Bruins, and then we're beating the Flyers. And that Flyers victory, I mean, it was just great. One, you're in Philly, couldn't have happened to a better group of people, worse group of people, I mean, that is. But I guess on both ends, right? The better group being us and the worst being the Flyers and their fans. Rocky's a great movie, but it's not real. So anyway, and then that game, that ended up making it so that the next night, Pittsburgh played a meaningless game. If we had lost, they would have had a chance. Same with Detroit. And even more so, the game was tied before we got that goal. Philly had to score. If it went to overtime, that was it for Philly. So we ruined a lot of people's nights that night, and I love it. I love playing the spoiler. Now, on to some interesting stuff. We definitely do owe the Rangers. There have been some games where they have too many men on the ice, things of that nature. We the calls that when we do that, yeah, it definitely gets called. When they do it, nah, not so much. Also figuring out the headquarters for like penalty review and all that's in New York. Crazy. But since the NHL introduced the new 2 wildcard teams format, which I can't remember when they did that. I want to say it's 2013, 2014, maybe. They're excluding 2021 season. No wild card has ever won the Stanley Cup. And more so, since the 2013, 2014, no President's Trophy winning team has advanced to the Stanley Cup final, let alone win it. As to the specifics of our matchup, do you know who the head coach of the New York Rangers is?
Nah.
Peter Laviolette. Does that sound familiar?
Oh yeah, he used to coach for us.
Yes. So
So yeah, we definitely can beat them.
well, and that's something. Shout out to Joe Beninati, goes on the 106.7 radio program often. He was explaining that while Laviolette and maybe even some of the Rangers might know us, we equally know him and his style. There's a lot of guys on this team that might sort of remember some of the fundamentals, the tactics that he employs. And then I did not know this one. Little bit of an interesting nugget. This will be a family affair, Mike. Charlie Lindgren, our goalkeeper, has a brother who is a defenseman for the New York Rangers, a one Ryan Lindgren. And if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember I think it's Quick. The Rangers back up Quick, if it is him. I know whoever it is, whether it's Quick or not. The Rangers also have a Stanley Cup winning goaltender as their backup. So kind of interesting that that's like a thing that both teams have going on, as well as the parity with the family and then the coaching with Laviolette. But I mean, this is awesome. Happy for guys like Carlson and TJ Oshie who have been sticking it out. Obviously Ovechkin. Which let me take another moment, which probably like the 15th or 20th time I've done this on the show. We've got to count our lucky stars that we have, granted football and even, basketball to a lesser degree sort of rules like the sports world in terms of popularity and like, entertainment as well. We have had the LeBron James of hockey, the Michael Jordan of hockey, Kobe, whoever you want. We have had him on our team, and he has been with us his entire career. And while we may only have one Stanley Cup, the amount of winning seasons, the amount of like 30, 40 goal seasons that this guy has put up, probably closer to 25. I don't know what's, average for hockey. I know he's had 50 goals season before, I believe. We are beyond lucky. Alex Ovechkin is a gem, just a true treat. He plays hard, he plays tough. He's sort of a man's man, just a regular guy who happens to be insanely good at hockey, hanging out over there on the left wing, just ready to blast a slap shot right through the net, right into your area code. We've got to really be appreciative. And I think it would be beyond amazing, very Hollywood, if somehow, starting with the Rangers, we can run the table and be the first wild card to win the Stanley Cup under the new format. Now, that is a gigantic meatball to devour, but we match up well with the Rangers. So like that's where we got to start. We can't look past them. They want to grind you out and get you to turn the ball over. I mean, turn the puck over and stuff. Um, the way we play, we kind of have like we're similar, but not as much grind it out and turn you over so much as just solid defense, quick counterattack. We've got we've got the matchup to win this. Now it's different because it's not going to be like a one and done, not a play-in game, not a single football playoff game. So that's where the difference comes in. But the storybook is there with Ovechkin and the goal record, as well as Charlie Lindgren and what he's done. I mean, this is very cool.
Yep. I'm excited. Game 1 is Sunday. Game 2, Tuesday the 30th. Game 3 is Friday, not Thursday. Friday the 26th. Game 4 is, I don't know when game 4 is. Sunday the April 28th. So those the first 3 games. First 4 games. Hopefully we don't get swept. Hopefully we can sweep them. Shoot.
Yeah, the way you were talking, I was like, are we going over all 4 games because you think we're going to sweep? Like,
Nah, that's just all that's been scheduled at the moment. Oh no, I'm lying. They actually did schedule all 7 games. It'll be Game 5 May 1st, Game 6 May 3rd, and Game 7 May 5th. If those 3 games are necessary. And once again, I hope they're not because the Caps swept the Rangers. I'm speaking it into existence. And the last topic of the show, Nationals, man. They did end up taking the L tonight to the Astros. They're celebrating the 2019 World Series championship tomorrow. First 20,000 fans, if you're listening in the morning. First 20,000 fans at Nats Park on April 20th, 420. receives a replica World Series ring, and based on what I've heard from the reporters on WTOP, it's a pretty nice ring. Has some weight to it, some sparkle to it. So if you're a hardcore Nets fan and you're listening to this on the morning of 420, get your butt to the stadium and get you one of them replica rings. But as far as the baseball team themselves, they're 3 games under 500, 5 games behind the Braves for first place in the NL East. But we don't expect them to like win the division or anything this year. We just want them to compete, and so far, that's what they're doing. Crazy enough, they're 6-6 on the road, but disappointing 2-5 at home. That's kind of weird. Now, I haven't looked at the schedule. Maybe they're just facing tougher teams at home. I know they just got back from a 9-game West Coast swing, I believe.
Yep.
I know they played the A's and Dodgers. I think
Giants as
the
well.
first team was the Diamondbacks
Giants.
or the Padres. I can't remember. I think it was the Padres.
Giants.
No, it wasn't even the Padres. You're saying that. I just couldn't hear you. It was the Giants because I think we beat them the first game and they beat us the last two. But,
We beat them the first two, and then they beat us the last one, and then we lost 2 out of 3 to the Athletics.
crazy.
One of them, the last game with the Athletics, we were winning like 6-2 or something, and then we let them come storming back and beat us 7-6. So there's actually some games, and same with some of our home games where we were winning and then we let them come back and win. So 8-11 at the moment. CJ Abrams, man, what a fun guy to watch. I mean, it just ridiculous. Just, like he's been on a tear lately. So definitely a young, talented prospect, only like 20 something. So it's cool to see him competing. I'm anxious for we're looking like we're starting to bring together like a decent, really young pitching staff. When you look at like Mackenzie Gore, Woods, I don't know what's going to happen with Josiah Gray. He did not start off well at all, which is a bummer.
I heard he was injured too.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of like the bigger name young guys in terms of pitchers that have gotten like an injury in the elbow, Tommy John kind of ballpark, pun intended. So yeah, I mean it's something to look out for that maybe, in another year or two down the line we could maybe start to really be a contender of sorts. But right now 8-11 is actually pretty good, especially you consider we took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, in LA. Kind of a big deal to me. Tonight, they were honoring the World Series team. Not everybody was there, Strasburg being one that wasn't, but a lot of guys were. And, you know, not quite on the same level of Ovechkin, but similar. Like, we got to remember that kind of stuff and enjoy it, man, because for both the Caps and the Nationals, those were some really good runs they went on in the playoffs. It was, filled with drama. It was entertaining, and we got the W. And DC needs those championships. You take those away, and we haven't really had a lot in a long time. So, I, I certainly don't think that this year's Caps are going to do the same thing, but it'd be cool to see. But I don't know. It's way too early to tell about the Nationals, but I would not even. That's not even a thought. Right now I'm just excited. It's early. They're competing. Hopefully, guys stay healthy. And I believe Davey Martinez. I think the next win he gets, or maybe last. Let me look. Is that Dodgers? Did it say it? No. I think Davey's coming close to getting like a milestone in terms of wins. Let me look this up. I should be more prepared.
I was looking at something from him a year or two ago because I remember seeing it on Facebook, and I posted that his winning record was like 429 or something like that. Like it was an awful winning record, but I was like, you gotta look beyond the number sometimes because most of his tenure has been like a rebuild. Like we're 4 years removed from the World Series winning season, and every year since that year has just been like awful as far as like competing for a championship. We just haven't been able to because it's been awful. Like the salary cap for Washington because of the Mariners, they were cheap. We got rid of a lot of our core players, and now it just seems like we're starting from the bottom again and going to have to build ourselves up. But I mean, that's what kind of happens in all sports, except for baseball. It feels like, but because like money matters in baseball. That's why the Yankees and them can like stay on top of the world because they can just buy the players they want, whereas the rest of the league and the rest of the world got to build a team. In Washington, the Nationals, they're just building the team again, and yeah.
So what I was gonna say is that win, the last win they got, the 2-0 win versus the Dodgers, that was a 400. That was David Martinez career win number 400. So pretty cool.
Nah, that's what's up.
Absolutely.
Do you got anything else, bro? Or
No, not really,
call
man.
it short?
We said a lot of words, so I think we covered it.
My bad. I'm looking at a video on Facebook of people trying to run across like wooden floaty thing on a pool or whatever. They're trying to run across water. And that's a child doing it right now. Obviously, they're not heavy enough to sink the thing. So that's ridiculous. But nevertheless, we're going to holler at y'all Mamas next week. Shout out to everybody looking at us on YouTube. And if
Appreciate
you're listening to us, thanks for that as well on all podcasting platforms. And we're going to holler at y'all Mamas. Talking a lot of NFL draft next week and NBA playoffs as well. That's kicking off starting tomorrow, I believe. The play-in games are the day. The Heat crushed the Bulls shockingly, and I say that because Butler's injured and probably going to miss the playoffs for Miami. But yeah, very shocking that the Bulls went out the way they did. And also basketball news: the Wizards fired everybody expectedly. So yeah, I feel like year 2 of the rebuild will be a fun one. And we have another top 5 pick incoming. And yeah, hopefully we win more than how many games we win this year? 13, 14 or something like that.
something.
Hopefully we can flirt with 20 wins next year.
Yep.
But as far as us, we out of here. Holla, y'all, Mamas.
Peace.